Cortez Masto.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to the ranking member. Congressman Long, a series of public reports last year unveiled a scheme by several companies to sell so-called tribal tax credits to investors. These credits are entirely fake. In fact, this committee received confirmation from the current IRS that confirmed that these tax credits not only do not exist, taxpayers who claim credits that don't exist are subject to penalties and possible examination, and furthermore, that promoters of these credits may be subject to civil or criminal penalties. The IRS and goes on to say, remind all taxpayers to be aware of tax scams and encourages taxpayers to consult with their reputable tax advisor. In your follow-up to the public financial disclosure report that you provided to the committee, you identified the work that you have done. You have said you've received $65,000 from Capital Edge Strategies, and that $65,000 was related to referrals involving tribal tax credits sold by White River. In response to that question, is that true? You said all my work with Capital Edge was related to tribal tax credits. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so moving forward, as the commissioner of the IRS, knowing that it is illegal to refer tribal tax credits because it is a scam, how do you sit here now and say that you have no conflict of interest?
I had no involvement other than recommending they get their CPA, their CFO if they were interested. And if they weren't interested, that was fine. Their professionals are the ones that looked at it to see the ramifications of it.
But you admitted that all your work with Capital Edge was related to tribal tax credits, and it is clear from the Treasury and the IRS that that's a scam. They don't exist. But yet you were referring those. In fact, you said in response to the question, how many tribal tax credit referrals did you work on for Capital Edge and White River? And you responded, less than 10 close friends and acquaintances to Capital Edge. So you did refer tribal tax credits to individuals, correct?
I referred them to Capital Edge Strategies, yes.
Okay, so knowing that they're illegal and the IRS has said they are illegal, how do you stand here before this committee and tell the chairman just a few minutes ago that you have no conflict of interest?
Because the Office of Government Ethics, which are career professionals that I've signed, controls all of that, and I did not have any perception whatsoever that these did not exist. And when I asked in our hearings the other day or our meetings with the staff, they said the IRS says they don't exist. And I said, who said that? We can't tell you. I mean, this needs to be investigated. Senator Wyden has the same interest.
So let me stop you right there. And so let me jump back to this. Because on April 14th, both Senator Wyden and I in this committee actually sent a letter to the acting commissioner of the IRS to investigate this. Are you aware of that letter?
No, I know that you all sent several letters to several people, but I'm not aware of that particular letter.
So let me make you aware of it. If you're not aware of it now, we'll submit it again for the record, that we've asked the IRS to investigate these tribal tax credits and the scam and the companies that were involved. And some of the companies allegedly that were involved were White River Energy Corporation, a company that you received compensation from. Isn't that correct?
No.
Yes or no?
I did not receive compensation from White River. So all my work was for Capital Edge. I've said several times, I met anyone in White River. I don't know anyone at White River. I simply referred to Capital Edge, where the credits came from or how that works.
On your financial disclosure statement, you disclosed $65,000 in income from referral fees from Capital Edge Strategies, correct?
I believe that's correct.
The financial disclosure stated that the source of the income was White River Energy Corporation, correct?
That was what OGE wanted to know.
That's what you filled out. That's what you filled out.
My understanding was that they...
So let me just say, I can only go with what you gave me. And this is the information. I can only go with the information, the facts that you gave me. That's what you filled out. So my question to you is, if you don't think it's a conflict that you peddled in the scam as the IRS commissioner, then how can you sit here today and to say there's no conflict, knowing now that there's an investigation underway with the IRS and we're asking them to look at this scam and it may involve a company that you were affiliated with? How would you handle that as IRS commissioner?
I cannot have anything to do with any company or any people that I dealt with because of the OGE form. And so I'm not pushing back on investigating.
I'm not asking about the form. I'm asking now. If you're nominated as the IRS commissioner, you know there's a potential investigation underway of a company that you were affiliated with. How would you handle that as IRS commissioner?
How will I what? I'm sorry.
How would you handle that as the IRS commissioner?
I would do whatever is legal and lawful and check with the legal staff and explain the situation to them and say that I worked for Capital Edge Strategies and they apparently had a arrangement with White River, and it was strange on that they wanted the information different than they wanted on the other things. So, but
Congressman Long, my time is up. My time is up, and I appreciate the indulgence of the chairman. I'm going to submit the rest of my questions for the record, and my concern is the fact that this company also contributed to one of your Senate-created PACs some money after you were nominated to the IRS. That's concerning. That is concerning that a company that is peddled in fraud, knows that there's a potential investigation from the IRS, is now providing you money, knowing that you are now being nominated to the IRS. I will submit my questions for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.